Wasatru, and covering. Bima yasturu lawn al-bashara, with what covers the color of the skin. Here, notice Sheikh didn't say with clothing that covers the color of the skin. Like what? Like clay. Mud, yani. Mud conceals the color of the skin. Yani. Let me pause here for a second. So, someone might say, hold on a second here, brother. You're telling me that a sister can just cover herself in mud and walk out the house like that? Well, technically, I'm not telling you that. What I'm telling you is, as a condition for the validity of prayer, I'm not talking about walking out the house to be technical. As a condition for the validity of the prayer, one must conceal the color of the skin. And the scholars, they said, even if that were by clay, yani mud. And then they talked about that. Yeah. So that's the judgment. As opposed to, for example, standing in water. What if you stood in water, but you had no clothes on under in the water? So is that water good enough for covering your aura? No, because you can see through it. What if a person had clothing that you can see through? If you can see the color of the skin through the clothing, that's not enough. So it's not clothing by itself, it's the concealment of the color. So وَالسَّتْرُ بِمَا يَسْتُرُ لَوْنَ الْبَشَرَةِ, and covering with what covers the color of the skin, the outer skin. لِجَمِيعِ بَدَنِ الْحُرَّةِ, for all of the body of the free woman. إِلَّا الْوَجْهَ وَالْكَفَّيْنِ, except the face and the two hands. Kef here means up to the wrist. Yad can go all the way to the shoulder. Kef is up to the wrist. وَبِمَا يَسْتُرُ مَا بَيْنَ السُّرَّةِ وَالرُّكْبَةِ لِلذَّكَرِ وَالْأَمَةِ. وَبِمَا, and to cover it with what? يَسْتُرُ مَا بَيْنَ السُّرَّةِ وَالرُّكْبَةِ, with what covers what is between the navel and the knee. Between them, so not the navel itself and not the knee itself. But in order to make sure you got everything, you have to cover a little bit of the navel and a little bit of the knee. Just like for a woman to bring her scarf down into her forehead a little bit, and she has to bring her scarf up into her chin a little bit to make sure she got everything. Just like the one who's making wudu, he has to wash past his, he really has to wash past his, for washing his face. For washing his face, he has to wash past his hairline a little bit to make sure he got the entire face. Like that. He has to go past the elbows a little bit to make sure he got all of the elbow. So that's a general rule there. He said if a woman dyed her hair with a color that conceals the original color of her hair completely, but you can see the hair, dye, it doesn't, that's not the same as like clay. It's not the same, because the dye doesn't actually put a barrier, doesn't make a barrier. Yes, so the dye doesn't actually cover the skin, or the ink, it doesn't cover the skin. Like, in other words, If your awra was covered by clay or mud, it's not haram for me to see that mud. If my eye fell upon you and I saw that mud on you or that clay on you, it's not haram for me to see that. On the other hand, what if, let's say, a woman had a tattoo on her arm, on her back, on her leg, anywhere where I'm not allowed to look? Can I look at that tattoo? I cannot look at it because the ink is not concealing the skin. That's clear? وَبِمَا يَسْتُرُ مَا بَيْنَ الثُّرَّةِ وَالرُّكْبَةِ, and with what covers what is between the navel and the knee, لِلذَّكَرِ وَالْأَمَةِ, for the male and the slave woman. مِنْ كُلِّ الْجَوَانِبِ, from all sides. لَا الْأَسْفَلِ, not the bottom, not including from underneath. Question: when it says li jami'il badan, it doesn't include concealing the hair. Was-satru bima yasturu lawn al-basharati li jami'i badani al-hurra. Yes, li jami'i badani al-hurra, for all of the body of the free woman, does include concealing the hair. But the first part was satru, and cover. Bima yasturu, with what covers, conceals. Lawn al-bashara, the color of the skin, also the color of the hair. That's the part that's not there in the Arabic. Li jami'i badani al-hurra, yani a cover for all of the body of the free woman. So here, what is this lamb? What is this lamb linked to in li jami'? For all of the body, li jami'. Is this lamb linked to the first satr? Then the meaning would be, and the cover for all of the body of the free woman. Or is this lamb linked to yastur? Then the meaning would be, and to cover with what conceals all of the body of the free woman. Anyway, the mas'ala is known. Nothing here should be confusing. The case is already known to you. The rule that you already know is what we know. No change here. We're just pulling the Arabic apart only to see what's going on. You said, is that implied that the hair should be covered since it's not in the Arabic? The color of the hair is not mentioned in the Arabic, just the color of the hair. But it says here in Arabic, li jami'i badani al-hurra, for all of the body of the free woman. So that means she has to cover her hair. Illa al-wajha wal-kaffayn, except the face and the hands. But she does have to cover, conceal, yani, the color of her hair that's not mentioned here. Min kulli al-jawanib, from all sides. That's for the male and for the female. The cover must be from all sides. So this word min, from, goes all the way back to satr or yastur, and covering from all sides, or and covering with what conceals from all sides. Lal asfal, but not the bottom. So how many sides are there? 6. So you have to cover 5 out of 6 directions. So your awra should not be seen from above or from the right or the left or the front or the back. If your awra can be seen from the bottom, then you have fulfilled your obligation. For your awra to be seeable from the bottom does not, you're not sinful, and your prayer is still valid. like if a woman wore something that went from her head to her feet, even to the extent that, for example, she could bow and prostrate, and this thing that she's wearing doesn't even lift off of the ground. But she's praying on a platform, on a tier, T-E-I-R, I think that is, a tier, a level up. And the floor she's standing on is transparent. You can see through it. So if one were to stand under her and look up, maybe you could see her aura. So is she sinful here? And is her prayer invalid? No. Same thing for a man. Maybe he's praying wearing izar. All he has is izar. Same scenario. So someone could see from his aura, from above or from the right or the left or the front or the back, it's not valid. But if the only direction from which his aura could be seen is underneath, then his prayer is still valid and he's not sinful. But this is a case that needs some attention here. When we say underneath, you might not know exactly what I mean. So I want to stop here for a second. So now here's a scenario for you. What if a woman wore a dress or a skirt that goes to her mid-shin, goes down below her knee, stops at about her shin, and she wears stockings also that come up to her knee? She has stockings that come up to her knee. So now a person comes and he looks at her. He sees her. He's standing face to face or across from her. What does he see from her aura? He doesn't see anything, right? Because her dress goes down below her knee and her stockings go up to her knee. He can't see anything. Her sleeves go to her wrists, her hair is covered, etc., her neck's covered. He doesn't see anything. Okay. So here, her aura is covered from his eyes, but that's not enough for her prayer to be valid. If someone were to take a mirror and just push that mirror to her feet, let's say, and then in the reflection of that mirror, he could see her aura, then that's not valid. Her prayer is not valid. If someone were to put a mirror down and then he could see her aura like that, so that means it's not covered well. So the woman's, all of her body is aura except her face and her hands. So she's standing on the ground. Her feet's on the ground. The bottom of her feet are on the ground and she's standing. And then someone brings a mirror and puts that mirror right next to her feet. So it's not underneath of her. The mirror is not beneath her. Someone puts that mirror right next to her feet. And then by that, he can see some of her aura. That means that her cover is not sufficient for her prayer. As opposed to if someone were under her and could look up and see her nakedness, then it's still valid. Male or female, not just for female. From underneath is still valid, I mean, for male or female. Is that clear, brothers and sisters? So the sisters have to be mindful about some areas where the aura is visible from the side, such as the ankles, the wrist, the collar from the side or the top, the ankle, the wrist, the collar. If her cuff of her sleeve is too wide, then her arm could be visible. So that's why some of our sisters, when they pray, they have something like a sock, for example, that they put on their hands so to conceal, to close the cuffs of their wrists to make sure nothing gets seen. And then some of them tuck their pants into their socks and they tuck their scarf into their collars. That way now nothing is seen from any direction. It's a condition when you pray, man and woman, when it comes to covering the aura, that you are able to do all the moves of your prayer without your aura showing up. That's your responsibility. Your clothing will lift up as you bend over, unless it's big enough or something. And a dress is not the only example. For a man, for example, if he's wearing shorts or even just a t-shirt, time for him to pray, he throw on some shorts and a t-shirt. If his t-shirt is young, as we say around my parts sometimes, if his t-shirt is young, so then when he bends over to make ruku', his back will become exposed, or maybe even the bottom of his belly would be exposed. Yeah, young means here small. He's wearing a young t-shirt. Why you got on that young shirt? That's what they would say. MashaAllah. It means your clothing's too small. Yeah. So if he were to bend over to make ruku', his back would appear, for example, or maybe the bottom of his belly appears because his shirt is too small, or he's wearing shorts, and then when he sits down for tashahhud, his shorts rise up and what's above his knees appears. So that's invalid. When the aura appears, that's invalid. Let's move on.